What's going on, Alabama fans? Chris Daughtry here with the Alabama Football Report. Appreciate you guys for joining us on today's show. We are going to be talking about Keon Keeley for the entirety of today's show. 247 Sports wrote an article listing Keon Keeley as a disappointment along with 9 other players from the 2023 and the 2024 class. So we're going to go over that on today's show, and I'm going to tell you kind of my thoughts on whether or not I think this is really fair or not. So let me know in the comment section right now, guys, of today's video. Do you guys think Keon Keeley has been a disappointment here in the first season and a half that he's been with the Alabama Crimson Tide? Type Y for yes or type N for no in the comment section right now. All right, like I said, 247 Sports wrote an article, and they titled it College Football's Most Disappointing 5-Star Freshman from the Recent Recruiting Classes. And I'll just say this right off the top. I don't really think you can really write this article from guys from the 2024 class and really from 2023 as well. I just don't think they've been in these programs long enough for you to really make that assumption. I think, honestly, you probably should have wrote the article for, 2021, 2022, but that's just really me, venting about that. So this is the list of the top 10 players that 247 Sports listed as the biggest, disappointments. I think you could also, call them busts. I think it's pretty much just kind of a nicer way of saying that. Malachi Nelson, they've got him on this list. He started off at USC, and now he's the backup at Boise State. He was the number 13 overall player in that 2023 class. Then you've got other guys like Micah Hudson, Dante Moore. He was the number 4 player in the 2023 class. Now backing up Dylan Gabriel at Oregon. Jackson Arnold, you could honestly put him on this list because we've seen him play at Oklahoma, and he just has not been very good. Cormani McClain, we know about him. Alabama was in the running for him in that 2023 class, ended up going to Colorado, and didn't really work out there. Now he is at Florida. Nyck Harbor, Lance Hurd, Cam Coleman. I don't really understand why they have him on this list. He's played a little bit for Auburn this year, and sure, it's not the massive breakout year that, they would want from him, like you're getting kind of from a Ryan Williams. So I don't really think that's fair for him. Amarius Williams, and also Keon Keeley right there, the number 3 player in that 2023 class for the Crimson Tide. And look, overall, I don't really think it's fair for them to, be putting some of these guys on a list like this, especially a guy like Keon Keeley, who hasn't really even had a chance to see the field at Alabama. There are so many factors at play here. It's not just the fact that, there's a lot of players on the field. There's been position changes and things like that. It's not really like Blake Barnett, and I think you could also add Jackson Arnold to that as well. Look, Blake Barnett was the number 22 overall player when he came out of high school, the number 2 pro-style quarterback, and he had his opportunity to go out there and be Alabama's starter at that quarterback position. I think that was in 2016. Ended up losing that job to Jalen Hurts against USC in that game. Jalen Hurts really broke out. And I think Alabama, that was that game that they scored like 63 or something like that on USC. So in my opinion, it's not really the same as a guy like Blake Barnett, who I think you could really call a bust. And look, like I said, there's just so many factors at play here. And we're going to talk about it all here on today's show. But first, before we move on to that, I just want to thank some recent subscribers here at the Alabama Football Report. Brian Watson, Gary Lewis, Christina Allen, and Chandler Hart. Appreciate all you guys for subscribing. We've got watch parties all season long for Alabama football games, obviously off this week, but we will be back for that LSU game here in a couple weeks, so do not miss out. Make sure you guys are subscribed at youtube.com/@RollTideTV. This is what 247 Sports said about Keon Keeley. He said a year and a half into his journey for Keon Keeley at Alabama, and the former 5-star edge rusher has appeared in just one game, playing a total of only 3 snaps. That was against Western Kentucky this season. Position changes from defensive end to outside linebacker and now to the bandit position off the edge has complicated the development of Keeley, who gained 35 pounds in the offseason. Alabama defensive line coach Freddie Roach touched on that behind-the-scenes process back in September. And if you look at Alabama's defensive line right now, they're pretty freaking loaded. You got Jamarian Latham and LT Overton at that bandit position right now. And look, LT Overton is a guy that, we talked about Jalen Hurts going into possibly the NFL draft, that Pro Football Focus mock draft from the other day. LT Overton was also listed in that first round mock draft. So, he is a guy that is playing well for Alabama. So is Jamarian Latham. That right now, look, Keon Keeley is just not better than those guys. It is what it is. And, when you've got, you're at Alabama, it is hard to get on the field at Alabama, whether you're a five-star player or not. And going back to that idea of the position changes, too. Keon Keeley in high school started off as a defensive end, then his first year here at Alabama moved to that outside linebacker position. And you think, oh, well, he's a five-star guy. Why didn't he start an outside linebacker? Well, you had Dallas Turner. You also had Chris Braswell. You had Q-Rob in there, who now in his fifth season with Alabama is finally getting his shot to start. So that's another example of a guy that, it's just taking him a lot of time. You also had Kendrick Blackshire, who ended up transferring and going to Texas, really not getting a lot of playing time there. You also have Keanu Coate in that room as well. Jeremiah Alexander was at that outside linebacker position before he moved to the middle linebacker spot. And if you also think, maybe he possibly should have been playing defensive end. Well, yeah, Justin Abogbe, Jamarian Latham, Jordan Renaud, Jaheim Otis kind of played some defensive end. Tim Smith has kind of played a little bit of that defensive end role as well for Alabama in the past too. So, there's been just a lot of different things going on, and it's not just simply the guy's really good, you got to get him on the field. Well, this is Alabama. There are a lot of guys that are really good that have to get on the field. Sometimes you just got to wait your turn. Keon Keeley was the number 2 overall player coming out of high school. He was committed to Notre Dame all the way up until signing day. I think it was like 2 or 3 days before signing day is really when he flipped to Alabama. So very, very late in the process. So, there's just a lot at play here for Keon Keeley. I don't think it's a matter of, him not going out there and putting in the work or doing anything like that. He added 35 pounds in the offseason to be able to fit that bandit role better than that outside linebacker role. So I still have a lot of faith and confidence in Keon Keeley. I really just hope he's a guy that, has that mentality that he's going to be able to stick around. And honestly, I do think he will stick around. So we'll touch on that after we give a shout out to our sponsor today, Game Time. Game Time has a new feature now called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets to see your favorite teams play live even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only the incredible deals on great seats so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. Game Time Picks is just curation that makes it easier to save more on sports, concerts, comedy, theater, and so much more. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer you get to the start of the event. So, if you're in Baton Rouge, you're going down there to tailgate here in a couple weeks, have no plans of going to the game, but then last minute you're like, F it, why not? I want to see if I can get some cheap tickets to the game. You can do that with Game Time. If you find tickets in the same section or row for less, Game Time will actually credit you 110% of the difference. Game Time has all-in prices. You toggle this feature on, and it shows you the total up front, so there are no surprise fees at checkout. They also have the panoramic views from your seat, so you can see exactly what your view is gonna be in your seat in the app before you buy your tickets. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app today, create an account, and redeem promo code CHATSPORTS for $20 off your first purchase. Check out GameTime.co for last-minute tickets. Terms do apply, but again, create an account and redeem promo code CHATSPORTS, CHATSPORTS, for $20 off your first purchase. That link will be in the comment section and the description of today's video. Download Game Time today, because what time is it? It's game time. Look, going back to this idea of Keon Keeley getting a slow start here at Alabama, there have been a lot of slow burners here at Alabama for the past couple of years from guys that are actually very, very good. They've all gone into the NFL, and, especially a guy like Jonathan Allen. Chris Braswell is having a very good year in Tampa Bay as well. Look, Chris Braswell, he was the number 39 overall player in that 2020 class. And, it took him to really his third year before he broke out to have 8 sacks. Christian Miller, the number 14 player in the 2014 class. it really took him until his 5th year to break out with 8.5 sacks. Jonathan Allen was the number 11 overall player in 2013, and it really took him until his 3rd year as well. Reggie Ragland, he was the number 39 overall player in 2012, and he played special teams for really, much of the first 2 seasons for him. That's one of those things that, especially under Nick Saban, if you're a freshman, sophomore, you're not really getting a lot of playing time on the field, whether that's offense or defense. They stuck a lot of those guys on special teams, and that was a way for them to, build their, value and everything like that to be able to play in a couple of seasons. And, for Reggie Ragland, it really worked out. His last 2 years at Alabama, he was an All-American at that linebacker spot. So just because you're not playing in the first, 2-3 years of your career does not mean you cannot, just continue to develop and be a, very good player in the future for Alabama or really any team. This conversation really goes across all of college football. I think there's a lot of expectations that gets put on a lot of these guys. It's something that Nick Saban talked about a lot, and expectations can be a very, very dangerous thing. So with those expectations, sometimes guys, get frustrated and end up hitting the transfer portal. It's just kind of the world we live in right now in college football. So what do you think happens to Keon Keeley? Do you think he transfers? Type T in the comment section, or do you think he's going to stick around and be a solid player for Alabama in the future? If you think so, type S in the comment section for me right now. And I've kind of already mentioned it here. Look, overall, it is so hard to play at the University of Alabama. It doesn't matter if you're the number 1 player in the country or not. There are dogs at all levels here at Alabama at every single position. And, just because you think you're a guy that needs to come in and immediately play, that's just not how it works. I just listed some guys that, were 5-star athletes coming out of high school, and they didn't play until their 3rd or 4th season sometimes. And when you have a guy like Keon Keeley who's having to go back and forth, learn different positions, put on weight, take off weight, put weight back on, there's just a lot of things that are involved here. And especially on the defensive line and on the offensive line, I think those are really 2 of the hardest positions to really make an impact early. We've seen guys, especially, as early as last year, Caden Proctor came in as a freshman and beat out Elijah Pritchett at that left tackle spot. But, Caden Proctor did not have a very good year over at left tackle. So just because you are a guy that comes in and is able to play early doesn't always mean, you're going to have the best results out there. And we've seen plenty of guys, come into Alabama and play as freshmen. And, it's just, is what it is. A lot of the times there's a need there. At cornerback this year, you're seeing Zabian Brown getting mainly, he's the starter there at that cornerback spot for Alabama. And that's really because there's been a need there at corner for, for the Crimson Tide this year. So I think with Keon Keeley right now, it's just a matter of, waiting your turn, continuing every single week to do the right things, whether it's, during the season or during the offseason, just get right. Continue to develop because your time is absolutely coming. Right now, you got Jamarian Latham and LT Overton at that Bandit spot. And look, they could be out the door as early as next year. Jamarian Latham, he's a redshirt senior, so he's probably going to go off to the NFL this year. LT Overton, like I said earlier, was in some of those first-round NFL mock drafts. So he is a junior, but he's playing a very good game so far this season. So I think there is a very good chance that Alabama might lose both of these guys. And, they've got some guys in the JUCO ranks that are coming up, in this coming up recruiting class that I think are going to fill some of that depth void. But, man, I really, really do believe that Keon Keeley is the next guy up at that Bandit position. So last time for you guys to get interactive here with our show today. Do you think Keon Keeley will start next season? Type 1 if you think it's yes, or type 0 if you think it's no.